Yeah, and if you don't take the opportunity, you don't know what you might have missed because you were so afraid to take it. And so it's better to just take it and not regret it later in life. Like, what if? Like, all the what ifs, you know?
Yeah,
so
courage is not the absence of fear. It's being afraid and doing it anyway.
I love that. I love that. Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name is Sabdi, and today I have another edition of Spotlight, so please help me welcome my friend Sam Isom. How are you, Sam?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Well, I just want to thank you for taking the time to do this interview with me. And so to start off, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So, I recently graduated from the University of Delaware in May amidst the pandemic. I never actually got a graduation, so that was fun, and by fun I don't mean fun. And so I've been working for Gore as like an intern or a contractor for like my 2 years in college. I graduated with a degree in apparel design and a minor in business. And so actually, like, after graduation, I was still a contractor, and eventually they offered me a full-time position, which I've already started this past week, and I'll be moving to Bozeman, Montana in about a month. So
that's exciting. Are you excited?
I'm definitely excited. It's the first time I've moved away, like, from my family ever. So I was born in Delaware and grew up in Delaware, and I've never been anywhere else. I even stayed here for college, so it's definitely a big move, but I'm so ready. I'm excited.
Well, I'm excited for you, and you're gonna go to Montana, the mountains, and so I'm sure there's like a lot to do over there as well.
A lot of skiing, a lot of snowshoeing, which I've done skiing like once. It was terrible. You know, you were there, but
you were good.
I tried, but I heard that skiing in the West is actually a lot better because there's more powder snow. So you can get more traction than like just skating across ice. So anyway, there's a lot of that, a lot of hiking, a lot of outdoor sports, and just enjoying the beautiful nature. And everywhere you go, like I visited last week, and everywhere you go there's mountains, and you're just like going to Safeway and you see like mountains in the background, which
is so exciting.
So awesome.
I'm so excited for you, honestly. And I wish you the best there. So a follow-up question. What is the career or the job you wanted when you were younger?
When I was younger, so I wanted a couple different things. So when I was younger, I always loved fashion. I always loved dolls. Like, I played with dolls until I was probably too old for dolls, but just because I love to dress them and make clothes for them. And so my parents kind of knew, okay, this girl loves to craft. She cuts up all her doll clothes and glues them back together and sews them back together. And I kind of made a mess. Like, they were not always supportive of it, of me like cutting up my own clothes or trying to make clothes for myself that looked ridiculous because I didn't have the skills yet. But I was just always interested in that, and I actually had my great-grandmother and my aunt as well, who were really into sewing, and they made doll clothes like for me as a child, and I would go over and like to their house and sew with them, and they would try and teach me, but they always said I never wanted to follow a pattern, but I think that was kind of like foreshadowing because I always wanted to do my own thing. Which kind of definitely helps when you're a designer. I mean, you do have to follow the pattern, but you get to make it yourself and decide what you want to make instead of just following the instructions. So that kind of helped me. That was a sign that I was creative.
Yeah, and I think that's incredible because that's like a talent. Not everyone has that talent to like design, create, do all of that comes with it. Do you design your own clothes, or have you designed anything or done anything like in school?
Yeah, so for school we are taught, now in the industry, like I'm never gonna have to sew anything myself. That's all done like overseas. So I'll just, plan the product, communicate with the factories, and choose the fabrics, colors, and decide what it will look like, but they'll actually like make the patterns and sew it. But yeah, so in school though, they did have us do every part of the process ourselves to learn how to do it. So a lot of times it was like begrudging to us because we were like, oh, we're never gonna have to learn how to sew. Why are you making us sew like couture techniques because it takes so much longer and you're never gonna do this in the industry. But they wanted to teach us like how to do everything correctly so that way we would know. So we had several pattern making classes where we would design jackets, pants, and then gowns. So I did a strapless gown. And we also had to do a senior collection as well. And we also did, in the beginning, we started with skirts and tops too. So we did have to make a couple pieces like each semester. And I remember my strapless gown took me like 2 weeks to sew. And
so is that a long time or a short time?
Oh, it's a long time, yeah. Because, and I actually started ahead of time and tried my hardest to, you know, always be like ahead of the game. Because, of course, there'd be students who'd try and pull an all-nighter and sew their garment because they, you know, didn't have their priorities right.
Procrastinated.
But, yeah, they procrastinated. But even when I tried so hard not to procrastinate, I would still be in there like the last night just doing something or sewing on a button or like at the last minute just because it took so long. So I don't know how people did it in a night.
Yeah.
I remember a girl said that she sat there from 4 p.m. until 4 a.m. like, and the joke was she sat in her chair and watched the sun go down and come back up in the same position. Like, that is crazy to me.
So would you say you're like a perfectionist when it comes to your items of clothing?
For sure. Like, I'm really hard on myself, but I also lack patience at times. So they work against each other because I want to get it done quickly, so I don't always, the kind of rule of thumb is measure twice, cut once.
Okay.
So a lot of times, like, I would measure once and cut twice. Like, I would do my pattern and it would not be correct, or I wouldn't check it always, and then I'd have to go back and do it again. After I started making something, I was like, oh, this isn't fitting together, because it's like a puzzle piece and the pieces don't always fit if you don't check them. So that was a struggle at times, and I would always like beat myself up over it. So yeah, I'm definitely a perfectionist. Like, I would lie awake at night if something was not right and I couldn't figure out why the pieces didn't fit together. I'd be like reworking it in my head over and over again.
Yeah. How many and to go back to that, I think that requires so much patience. So I can only imagine how much patience you must have. You say you don't have a lot, but I can only imagine how much you do have because of how patient you have to be, especially if you mess up.
Oh, for sure.
How many items of clothing have you done?
I'm not sure. I'd have to like count it up. At least 10.
Okay, that's good though.
Or more than 10.
Because it takes time.
Yeah.
And then you're designing everything on your own from scratch.
I've made at least 5 pieces since quarantine. Actually, no. Yeah, I'd say maybe upwards of 20 then. Because I've made at least 5 pieces since quarantine. And sometimes, like right now, I'm just making something from a vintage pattern. So sometimes it's nice not to make the pattern from scratch and just follow along and make something fun. But then it's kind of hard to fit. Because the patterns are like, their sizing is weird. So I still have to tweak it sometimes. But
would you say that this is your passion then?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, definitely. I love making stuff. Like, the happiest time for me is to just like be alone in my studio and just watch like a chick flick movie in the background, or like put on like, I don't know, You've Got Mail or Pride and Prejudice or something like that and just chill and make something. That's like my happy place for sure.
I can like just tell that this is your passion because of how excited you are to just talk about it, and I love that. My next question for you is, what is a quote you live by or you love, or a Bible verse, anything that every time you think of or you read you feel inspired in some way?
I would say my favorite quote that all the women in my family live by, my great-grandmother said it, and she's like my favorite person. She taught me how to sew, and she's definitely like the matriarch of our family, and so she always said, remember who you are, where you come from, and who you represent. And I think that kind of transcends into not only your family but also your faith as well, because we're representing God and remembering who we are, we're His, where we come from. And also with our family as well. Like, we represent our family. So, like, don't go out there and not be true to yourself, you know? Just always, you know, be classy and remember that you're representing the Lord and your family. And, like, also, like, you always have your family to come home to, and you always have God to be there for you, so.
I love that. I love that. So what is your dream job?
My dream job, it's changed. Definitely since the pandemic too. Because like the market for clothes is so much different. Like, I used to think, oh, my dream job would be to be like the creative director for NSW or some sort of like US high fashion brand. But then after the pandemic, a lot of those brands, like, people aren't buying nicer clothes anymore or dressier clothes, or investing more in sportswear or something like that. And now working for a hunting gear company with Gore, like, I kind of fallen in love with like the textiles that work with your body and protect you from the elements and help you do those sports and activities that you love. Probably my goal is to be like a creative director, just control like the identity of the whole brand and where they're going creatively. I love coming up with new products and just seeing based on like what's going on in the world. Like, there's a lot of there's trend forecasting that we do, so you kind of look at what's going on in the world, like politically and with food and with travel, and how that all trickles down and affects fashion, because fashion is basically a symptom of what's going on in society, and that's kind of how we come up with the trends.
So my other question is, what is your favorite piece that you've made?
Ooh.
And how long did it take you to make? Like, what inspired you to make it?
I think one of the coolest pieces I made was for my senior collection, and I actually like hand painted the fabric in 8 different panels. So I made a shift dress. So my senior collection was about the 20s, because I read a book called The Paris Wife, and it's about Ernest Hemingway's first wife. And it was a fictional perspective of like true events. So it's based off of Ernest's memoir. And no one had ever asked his first wife, you know, her opinion. So this writer, like, thought about, well, what would she be thinking in these situations and these events that happened in their marriage? And they were hanging with the lost generation in Paris in the 20s, like Gloria Steinem and Pablo Picasso, and, like, just, it was so rich in culture and color. And so I was really inspired by that, and inspired by like the passion in their relationship, and also her as a woman, because she started as, her character transformed throughout her marriage, when she started as this woman who, she was 28 when they got married, and so that's kind of older for being in the 20s, and she was shy and unsure of herself and not really like feeling like beautiful. And then like throughout this like, she's more conservative, and she didn't really understand these modern women, but then while living in Paris, she became more modern and empowered, and saw all these women and who were, you know, starting to change how she felt about herself. So I just really wanted to capture like that strong modern women, and I thought how fitting is that my senior collection is in 2020, and that kind of that idea of a modern women, like, that translates.
So I'm done with my questions. Do you have any final thoughts, advice, anything that you'd want to say?
I would say don't ever overlook the opportunities. And also don't be afraid to move across the country too,
Right.
because I'm definitely afraid of that. Like, I don't love being alone all the time, but I'm excited.
Thank you for sharing that, Sam. Well, thank you for, like I said, taking the time today to do this interview with me. I learned a lot about you. I remember the first time I met you, you were like, I made these pants. And I was like, what? What do you mean you made these pants?
Yeah, I did.
So I love that. I love you always have like, you know, your fashion. I like wish you the very best in your new job. And congratulations again. Thank you everyone for watching. See you guys in my next video.